Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalam ala rasulillah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, Allah has allowed us to reach the 30th Juz, and inshallah, we're going to cover some of the general meanings. This Juz, as I mentioned in the beginning, the ulama, they say, or some ulama said, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gathered all of the knowledge of the previous books that He has ever revealed in the Quran, and in the knowledge of the Quran, all has been gathered in the Mufassal from Surah Al-Qaf to Surah Al-Nas, and then all of the knowledge in Surah Al-Mufassal has been placed in Juz Amma, and then the knowledge of Mufassal, of the knowledge has been placed in all of the summary of that has been placed in Surah Al-Fatiha, and the knowledge of Surah Al-Fatiha is summarized in Iyyaka na'budu, you alone we worship, wa Iyyaka nasta'in, and you alone do we seek help, because this is what it comes down to. It comes down to our responsibility to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that only Allah can give us the ability to worship Him as He deserves. And may Allah forgive us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Naba, Surah Al-Naba is the great news, and or the great message. So it could be referring to the Quran, or it can be referring to the last day, which is the predominant meaning or the predominant theme of the surah is the last day. And Allah says, Amma yatasa'alun, what are they discussing? What is it that they are disputing about? And that refers to the disbelievers and their objection to the Prophet ﷺ and to the Quran, or to the believers and the disbelievers. What are they disputing about? Allah says about the great news or the great message, الَّذِي هُمْ فِيهِ مُخْتَلِفُونَ, that they have various stances in regards to it. Some are those who believe, and some are the disbelievers. And also the disbelievers, they have various divergent paths when it comes to the belief in the hour. Some they are in doubt, and others reject it all. So there are three categories of people: those who disbelieve completely, those who believe, and those who are in doubt. As the man said, and Surah Al-Kahf, وَمَا أَظُنُّ السَّاعَةَ قَائِمَةً, and I'm not sure, I don't think the hour will be established, and if it were to be established, I will find greater abundance. So there are people who are in the middle. These two, the disbelievers and those who are in doubt, their direction is to the fire, and the believers are those who are heading to Jannah. May Allah bless us to be amongst them. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this surah mentioned, he enumerated a number of blessings which demand reverence, respect, and the submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have we not done this? Have we not made the earth as a carpet? Have we not made the mountains as pegs? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives, He mentions a great chapter of nature, mentioning His favor upon us. And then after this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after mentioning His bounty, He reminds us of the last day, and that the day of fasl, the day of separation, that the believers and the disbelievers will be separated. And also fasl could mean judgment, and that means that all the disputes, as Allah said, الَّذِي هُمْ فِيهِ مُخْتَلِفُونَ, that they are in doubt or different, they are in dispute about, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make fasl, He will judge between them in regards to all of these disputes and these debates. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He called the last day the day of fasl, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained the severity of the people on this day when the trumpet is blown. And this is the trumpet here, as Allah says, يَوْمَ يُنْفَخُ فِي الصُّورِ فَتَأْتُونَ أَفْوَاجًا, the day the trumpet will be blown, and that you will come in groups, and that means some people will follow, as in the authentic hadith, everyone will be told to follow that was which they used to worship. Some people will follow the sun, and others will follow the moon, and it will take them to Jahannam. Those who used to worship the sun, they will follow the sun to Jahannam. Those who used to worship the moon, they will follow the moon to Jahannam. Or those who used to worship the taghut, any false deity worship besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether they be idols or evil rulers, they will follow them to Jahannam, and then they'll be left the believers and the Jews and the Christians. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to the Christians or the Jews, what they used to worship. They say, we used to worship Allah and Uzair, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, Uzair is free from you today. And then they'll be taken from the left and seized from the left side to Jahannam. And then Allah will ask the Christians, what is it that you used to worship? And they would say, we used to worship Allah and Jesus or Isa alayhi salam. And then Allah will say that Isa alayhi salam is free from you today. So they will be taken, seized from the left side and taken to Jahannam, except for a few Jews and Christians who maintain Tawheed and didn't worship besides Allah and follow the prophets. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will show His shin to the creation in a manner which is in a manner which befits His majesty, and then the believers will prostrate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the hypocrites, their backbones will become one vertebrae, and they will not be able to prostrate. So each group, and you'll come in groups. And the first group, as the Prophet said in this authentic hadith, that the first group to be judged and the first group to pass over to move from the plains of Yawm al-Qiyamah and pass over Jahannam, over the bridge, which the Prophet described as being sharp as a blade and thin as a hair, as in some hadith, that they will be the Muslims, the followers of the Prophet ﷺ, and the prophets. Each prophet will be at the Sirat, waiting for the people, their followers, and their dua will be Allahumma sallim, sallim, O Allah, keep us safe, keep us safe. That's the majority of the things that the Prophet will say on that day. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said that you will come in afwaja, and this is referred. So some surah refer to the blast, the first nafkha, or the first blowing into the horn, and others refer to this other surah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to the second blowing of the horn, and the context will tell you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then He mentions after this that the reward of the punishment of the disbelievers and the reward of the believers. He says jaza and wifaqa, that it will be a punishment that is appropriate to their deeds, and they would not taste coolness or any drink except for the fire, and ghassaqa, something that will cause them to choke, and in some narrations that they will drink the pus of the people of the fire. And then Allah mentioned that the believers will be in bliss, eternal bliss, for the people of taqwa, and this is the supreme achievement and the ultimate beauty and the perfect companionship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the companionship and the ultimate beauty, and what no eye has seen and no heart has felt and no mind has been able to capture. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, usually he mentions that they will have a full cup of heavenly wine, and this indicates there will be, in addition to the supreme achievement and ultimate beauty and perfect companionship, that there will be luxury and heavenly wine, and there will be no vanity and no feeling of sin. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمُ الْحَقِّ فَمَنْ شَاءَ اتَّخَذَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِ مَآبًا. And Allah says, and this is the day of truth, so whoever wills, let him take to his Lord a ma'aba, a return. In other words, whenever Allah mentions the severity of Yawm al-Qiyamah, Allah mentions the return and the preparation for return. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us and allow us to prepare sincere deeds in accordance to the legacy of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one last thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, just one last point to point out in this surah, Allah mentioned how how Jibreel alayhi salam and the angels will be in lines, and in some hadith, Jibreel alayhi salam is described as standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's throne, shivering from fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and an awe of Allah, reverence of Allah, and he will be saying, Subhanaka la ilaha illa ant, Subhanaka ma abadnaka haqqa ibadatik. Glory, none has right to be worshipped but you, O Allah, and perfection and glory be to you. We have not worshipped you as you deserve. So this is Jibreel alayhi salam. Imagine how Allah's right is upon us, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Jibreel alayhi salam was described as between one of his shoulders and the other is between that equal to the distance between the east and the west, and he will be shaking from he'll be standing and shaking from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from his reverence and his awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these surah deal with the severity of the last day. The next surah, Surah Al-Nazi'at, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by the angels that rip out the souls of the disbelievers with violence. When nashitati nashta, some scholars they say that they are the angels, also referring to the angels of anger or punishment. They come and they rip the souls out, even to the extent where it's like ripping between the skin, ripping the skin off of the body. But but that is because the soul of the disbeliever will separate in the body when it sees the punishment of Allah, and the angels say, "Come out to the anger of Allah and His punishment." The soul will separate into the body, and the angels will rip out the soul with violence of those who are defiant, and they would not want to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah would not want to meet them. As for the believers, other scholars, the majority of scholars, they say that this is referring to the angels that take the souls out gently. And the Prophet described that the soul will come out of the believer like water coming out of a cup. And so Allah swears by these angels and by the angels that move quickly through the cosmos, swiftly through the cosmos to fulfill Allah's command and hasten to do good deeds, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and gave them certain responsibilities, how the day of, He swears by all of these angels that the hour will be established. He speaks about an ayat in 6, يَوْمَ تَرْجُفَ الرَّاجِفَ, when the shake, the utmost shake will take place, and then it will be followed with more violent shakes or earthquakes. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this surah warns of the severity of the last day, and He refutes those who reject the establishment of the resurrection, the establishment of the hour, how it is easy for Allah to bring back the bones and bring back the one who created it from nothing. It's easy for Him to bring it back. And Allah says, إِنَّمَا هِيَ زَجْرَةٌ وَاحِدَةٌ, it's just one single compelling cry, and they all, behold, everyone is above on the surface of the earth. إِذَا هُمْ بِالسَّاهِرَةِ, Sahira is the surface of Allah of the earth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَوْمَ تُبَدَّلُ الْأَرْضُ غَيْرُ الْأَرْضِ, the day that earth will be alternated and made into another earth. And Allah says, وَأَشْرَقَتِ الْأَرْضُ بِنُورِ رَبِّهَا, that the earth will be illuminated with the light of its Lord, and the book will be placed, and the prophets and the martyrs will be brought forward. So behold, this is the second blowing, and it's simply one blast, one compelling cry, and they will all be above the surface of the earth. And Allah mentioned Musa alayhi salam, as He often compares the Prophet to Musa, and what Musa alayhi salam met from Fir'aun, the tyrant, as the Prophet met from the tyrants of Mecca. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows the Prophet in the end of those who were defiant, and this is a promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will destroy also the enemies of Islam in the Prophet's time, and every time and that these people don't understand the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah mentions the transgression and disobedience of Fir'aun despite the great signs that Musa alayhi salam brought him. And then Allah mentions the statement he made that destroyed his dunya and his akhirah, that earned him the to be seized by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, divine seizure, and he was drowned and burnt, as Allah he says, فَأُغْرِقُوا فَأُدْخِلُوا نَارًا, they were drowned and entered into fire. As we know that the fire is presented to Fir'aun in his grave and his people in the morning and in the evening. Twice their graves are full of the fire, and then on the last day Allah will tell them, the angels, to enter Fir'aun to the worst punishment. After this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions the greatness of his creation, and he compares he compares the creation of man to the creation of the heavens and earth. And Allah says, أَأَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا, is it you who are greater in the creation, or أَمَ السَّمَاءُ بَنَاهَا, or the sky and the firmament that Allah built, رَفَعَ سَمْكَهَا فَسَوَّاهَا, he has raised, or he has risen its canopy and perfected it. And then Allah speaks about the various creations which demand his right upon us and reminds us that there will be accountability of these blessings. And Allah says, the overwhelming event, فَإِذَا جَاءَ, when the overwhelming event comes, the day where mankind will remember what they did and remember the deeds they put forward, and the fire will seek out those who it will attempt to come forward and grab those who it sees out of anger for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah mentioned that the man will be of two categories: those who prefer the dunya over the akhirah, and their abode will be fire, and those who who held back their nafs and fought their nafs and their evil lust and their low desires, calling them to fall into the lower levels of humanity, or of inhumanity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ, those who feared the position of their Lord over them and withheld their nafs from falling, that Jannah is their abode. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he reminds us how the disbelievers ask about the hour and they don't prepare for it. And this is one of the characteristics, the opposite characteristic of the companions. They used to ask questions about how to save themselves from the fire, how to get to paradise, how to please Allah. And as we mentioned in Surah Al-Insan, one of the companions from Habasha, he heard the recitation of, he asked the Prophet ﷺ, if I believe in you and follow you, will I see in paradise, in heaven, what you see? He said yes. And then the Prophet ﷺ recited to him. He kept asking questions, and the Prophet ﷺ recited to him Surah Al-Insan, which describes the paradise in detail. And then from his longing for paradise, he passed away. So this is the characteristic of the companions, and the opposite characteristic is the characteristic of those who are defiant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They ask, when is the hour? When will we die? When is the punishment of Allah? Bring the punishment. And they have no idea of how severe Allah's punishment is. Surah Al-Abasa is what comes next. Abasa means to frown, and this is because the Prophet ﷺ was once giving dawah to the Quraysh and the heads of Quraysh, and the Prophet ﷺ wanted the leaders to become Muslim, as it would make Islam stronger. And he was once giving dawah, and Abdullah ibn Maktoum, one of the blind people of Mecca, who was just a normal person, the Prophet ﷺ, he made ijtihad. He figured that giving dawah to these are better, to the elite is more influence. And Allah, and then he turned away from Abdullah ibn Maktoum and frowned because he didn't want the Quraysh. He was saying to them, do you see anything wrong with what I'm saying? And they said, no. So he was hopeful that they would become Muslim, and then he turned away, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reprimanded him, reminding him that it is a message, and it is more important to give da'wah to the one, the simple person who is seeking to purify his soul, than to give to pay attention or give priority to those who are arrogant, and even though they're elite in society, they have no value in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet ﷺ used to hold him in high esteem, and when the Prophet ﷺ went to fight one of his battles, he put him in charge of Medina, and he used to also, whenever he saw him, he would honor him, and he made him one of the mu'adhin, along with Bilal radiallahu anhu. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he in this surah, he deals with the importance of giving those innocent, sincere souls priority over the evil, wretched souls, even though they have a different position. And also in it is an indication that Allah says in Surah, he says in Ayat 13, Allah says, Ayat 11 to 13, Kalla innaha tadhkira. This is, nay, it is a reminder for whoever wills to be reminded, and it is in raised scrolls, and raised scrolls, or inscribed and raised in honorable scrolls, في صحف مكرمة مرفوعة مطهرة بأيدي سفرة. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised the Quran and explained that the Quran is a reminder, and it is held in high esteem. And this is referring to the angels who preserve the Lawh al-Mahfuz, the preserved tablet in the heavens. And there's also indication of those few companions in Mecca in the early period of Mecca, how Allah is depicting their love and honor and preservation of the Quran. He called them honored inscriptions and parchments or writings or surfaces which are held in high esteem and protected and pure, بِأَيْدِي سَفَرَةٍ, in the hands of those who inscribe them, كِرَامٍ بَرَرَةٍ, noble and righteous. And this is referring to the angels and the companions, as these were exalted companions and pious scribes. So this is an indication of how much they revered and exalted the Quran at that time, the companions radiallahu anhum. And Abdullah ibn Maktoum was one of them. He wanted to hear the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah explains the severity of the disbelief of mankind despite his insignificant origin, how he is from just a drop of sperm. And then Allah reminds, he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in complete control of him, and that he is the one who puts him in his grave and takes him out, and he whenever he wills. And then Allah reminded us to look to what he has subjugated for man from his food, and how he sent down water, and he split the ground, the earth, and brought forth vegetation and the different types of provision. Should not he then be thankful? Should not he prepare for a day when a person will run from the most beloved people? Allah says, يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ, the day a man will run away from his brother, his mother, his father, his companion, his children. So it shows the severity of that day, وَيَعْذُ بِاللَّهِ. And Allah explains how some faces are beaming with joy and laughter, and how other faces will be dust stained and covered in darkness. وَيَعْذُ بِاللَّهِ. عَلَيْهَا قَتَرَةٌ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَفَرَةُ الْفَجَرَةُ. These are the disbelievers and those who are defiantly disobedient. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains, then comes Surah Al-Takwir, and this surah starts a series of chapters which portray the very, very graphic depiction of the destruction of the last day, and how this world will be eradicated, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will create a new world. And the Prophet he said, as in Sunan Tirmidhi, and a good hadith Hasan, the Prophet he said, whoever wishes to look at the Yawm al-Qiyamah as if he's witnessing it, then let him read. He wants to see Yawm al-Qiyamah as if he's looking at it, then let him read Surah At-Takwir. And Takwir means to roll up. إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ, when the earth, the sun will be rolled up and folded up, and it will lose its brilliant light, and it will fall from the sky. And when the stars, also Yawm al-Qiyamah, the stars will fall, and the mountains will be uprooted and turned to dust. So everything that is strong and stable, it will be utterly annihilated on the last day. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this surah, He mentions a number of events that will take place due to the first blowing of the trumpet, and a number of things that will take place after the second, during blowing of the trumpet. From ayat 1 to 6, it talks about 12, altogether it talks about 12 events that will take place, from the folding of the sun, the falling of the stars, the destruction of the mountains, how things that are extremely valuable will lose their value, and all the way until he mentioned how though the soul, the innocent soul that was buried alive, how they will be questioned. And this is amazing, because if the soul that was the innocent girl that was buried alive is questioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how about those who buried her? How about if the oppressed are questioned? How about those who oppressed him? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the most important thing that He usually mentions when He discusses the destruction of the world, the universe, and the annihilation and the eradication of this world. He mentions alimat nafsum ma ahdarat, every soul will know what it brought forward. And Allah mentioned how the fire will be the blazing fire will be kindled to even a fiercer heat, and how Jannah will be brought Jannah itself, paradise, will be brought near. So every soul on that day will know what it brought forward. Every soul would know the deeds it committed, it put forward. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the best ending and protect us on that day. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by four things, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or that Jibreel alayhi salam is a noble prophet, and that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not fall short in relaying the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Neither did he hold anything back, nor did he fabricate anything from himself. Allah says, وَمَا هُوَ عَلَى الْغَيْبِ بِالظَّنِينَ. There's two recitations, ظَنِين and ظَنِين. ظَنِين is to muttaham. In other words, he's not accused of any lack of truth. And that's one recitation, ظَنِين. وَمَا هُوَ عَلَى الْغَيْبِ بِالظَّنِين. Nor is he regarding to the unseen bakhil. In other words, he's not someone to hold back anything. Everything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him to relate to the people, he relays it, even if it appears not to be, even if it's against or something that has to do with Allah reprimanding himself. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, if it's not from so the Quran is not fabricated, and is not a lie, nor is it any the Prophet did not hold back anything, nor did he lie about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and is not from the jinn. So أَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ, where are you going with your accusations? Where else could it be from? إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا ذِكْرٌ لِلْعَالَمِينَ, it is only a reminder for all mankind. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to be steadfast and to take our path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and no one can take a path to Allah except by Allah's will. Then comes Surah Al-Infitar, also in the series of of surah that describe the annihilation of the heavens and earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, when the heavens is split asunder and the stars are scattered and the oceans burst forth and the graves are emptied, bu'thirat, that which is in them come out. Allah says every soul knows what it put forward and what it held back. Everyone will know, believer and disbeliever, exactly what he did. The disbelievers will know that they lost every opportunity for salvation, and believers will know the good deeds they did and the sins, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will inform them before He forgives them and enters them to paradise. May Allah bless us to be amongst those who enter paradise without punishment or reckoning. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions these events, these 4 events, just as in the previous surah He mentioned 12 events, and then that will occur before mankind knows before every soul will know what it put forward and what it held back. In the previous surah, Allah mentioned 12 events, and He said that every soul will know what it brought forward to the hereafter from good deeds and bad deeds. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned 4 events that will take place. Then every soul will know what it put forward and what it fell short in. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, يا أيها الناس أيها الإنسان ما غرك بربك الكريم. O mankind, what is it that caused you to be deceived regarding your noble and generous Lord, who protected you, who created you from nothing, who sustains you? How can you be deceived? How can you forget Allah's favor? How can you forget Allah's creation of you? How can you forget Allah's protection of you? And this is a great crime against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned that every soul has a watcher or one to preserve them and preserve their deeds. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned that the righteous will be in bliss and that the fujjar, the sinners, will be in jahim. And this is including the dunya and akhirah, as the righteous are in bliss in their hearts due to their submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and their trust in Allah and their good thoughts about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the promises that Allah has for them in this life and hereafter. They know that they're waiting to meet the Creator, who it will be pleased with them bi'idhnillah. And the disbelievers are in misery as they are facing the pain of their sins, and they don't understand why they're in misery. And no one has a more tranquil heart and peace of mind, and more peace of mind than those who are in line or in tune with the one who created them and who submit their will to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inshallah, after this we will cover Surah Al-Mutaffifin inshallah ta'ala.